like the former speaker, I also noted the migration today is both a crowded and, but that adds to the confusion in my view. So I hope that the HLMP will be able to concretize and popularize what the view should be on migration. It is also good to have looked at the outline, the proposed outline, and actually thank the ECA for that. That is going to be knowledge-based and coming out of research. However, I want to underscore, although mention, that people have been moving for centuries, managed or not, and they will continue to do that. It was mentioned that 9 regions are under strife right now on the continent of Africa. And I think that will continue to exacerbate the problem with people choosing to leave due to undue conflict. Our leaders need to confront this issue. No one can leave their country of birth, in most cases, without looking back if everything is okay. So there's a lot of forced movement than there is chosen movement in my view. We must try and popularize the SDGs on migration itself. Now I'll try to quickly skim through the questions that we were given. I think I will try and start by saying, coming from South Africa, our government has also taken it very seriously, and most of the agencies that are in South Africa, based in South Africa, have contributed to a report, and I'm sure the ILO, when they speak, they'll talk to that. A report that includes labor, business, and the general community on how to deal with the issue of migration. And it's sitting with cabinet right now. So it's a position that will be implemented in our country. But then the question comes, how many other countries have the same type of reports, and how have we integrated these reports to the one that we will give in the end, so that we are not going all over the place. So I think that is something that we have to deal with. We also need, going back to the head of the secretary from ECA, I wrote here about forced migration that we really need to be honest and confront the issues that bedevil our continent and make our people travel sometimes when they don't want to and risk flee their countries of birth. I know I fled as a youngster, apartheid South Africa, and I had to reside in another country and got the benefits of being outside of South Africa, got the education, and ultimately went back to South Africa when it became a democracy. But I'm also alive to the many people who are in South Africa who come across strife. Our country is 2 nations in one that is rich and wealthy, and most of the educated will come to South Africa and settle nicely, no problem. And I heard Dr. Songwe say our economy, has a lot of Zimbabweans in them. We are lucky. We have people from all over the world, not just Zimbabwe, who have contributed to the economy, and that benefit needs to be put into a report so we know there are no auditable statistics. Even though our statistics South Africa is very robust, it will talk to the issues about how the economy is doing, the contribution from various sectors. But we haven't drilled down to the contributions by migrants into South Africa, for the South African people themselves to understand the contribution that we're getting or we've gotten in the past 24 years and beyond from people who have come to live in South Africa. I also, then the other side, the one that is not prosperous, that's where we find the challenges, because then somebody who might not have enough education, who might be fleeing strife, might not be as educated, go and settle amongst the people who are struggling themselves. That's where strife comes. And we have to work out how we deal with the conflict of these people are in the country to take away something from us. It's a reality. And I'm so glad that Dr. Songwe talked to that issue. It's a reality. We can't sweep it under the carpet. We have to deal with how we make it possible for those people who integrate into the communities. We also need to deal with what in South Africa say, people say, the migrants come into South Africa, but they separate themselves. They want to live in their own communities. They don't want to integrate with South Africans themselves. So the benefit can be massive. I also, in terms of what you said, we must look at, I think we need to embark on a need analysis of the skills needed on the African continent. We are doing that as a panel, and I think we'll be able to give the results to that. An audit of who is a visitor in all African countries and their contribution in their host countries, because these are usually not taken into advantage. And I've talked to the sentiment about migration in most countries is not managed properly. We cannot pretend that people are not proprietary about their countries and welcome people with open arms. We need to find a way. We need to highlight more the benefits and the impact that we get from new immigrants. We need to ensure integration. There has to be auditable benefits that need to be communicated to the communities for the people to embrace the immigrants. If we don't do that, they think they take, they don't see the giving. We also need to debunk the myth that only Africans migrate to the West and East and cause problems there, and show that the world that it's a quid pro quo type thing. Migration is mutual in South Africa. We've seen more Europeans, Asians, Americans migrate to South Africa, and it's normal. I was in Brussels recently, and I was surprised to hear the head of government, the head of state say that the largest community of Belgians outside of Belgium live in South Africa. I wasn't aware. And many Germans who live in South Africa, some regulated, some unregulated, but most people don't know that. So we need to talk to it in that, so perception is superseded by reality and the truth. But the elephant in the room is that all former colonial countries must contribute to Africa and not just take from Africa and give back very little. We need to communicate to the countries the benefit that they derive from Africa, not portray Africa negatively, but highlight what they derive from Africa. We must communicate. They must communicate why Africans have the right to migrate also to other countries and the benefit that those countries derive from African migration. But we must also get our house in order, and I think Mrs. Negash pointed it out, that we must right the wrongs that are on the African continent. We need to get our house in order. Our people should not be forced to risk their life and perish in the Mediterranean Sea, nor risk being enslaved, as in the cases we have seen recently. But if we don't invest in our people and develop our nations for our people, and we will continue to see this, and we also need to make sure that what we write doesn't end up in rooms like this, where we preach to the converted, but take it there to the people. What can we do? I think we need to get investment for the benefit of Africa and Africans immediately. We are the richest continent. We talk about it, but what do we do about the fact that we are the richest continent? We need to beneficiate so our people stay on the continent. Let's study the models, for instance, of Asia. It was 70 years ago, it wasn't rich, but they went out there and they put their people and countries first. They trained, developed, and educated their people to be world beaters. They sent their people globally, migration, to look for opportunities for their countries. They use a model that says we bring investment and technology to our country, but we bring our people to develop them there. What do? We need to position a win-win position for Africa. We need to say the minerals are ours, bring investment and technology, but interface it with our knowledge and develop our countries and our people. Nothing more, nothing less. We need regional integration. Africans need to work together first to develop the continent. We must debunk the notion of working against each other. We need regional hubs of development so we don't do the same things but diversify. We need to embrace each other's strength and develop each other. As Team Africa, we can win. The fourth industrial revolution is upon us. We need to embrace technology, but it must work for us. It mustn't work for other people. Africa of the AU is a different Africa from the one that we had of the OAU. We have moved. But have we made a difference? I'm asking Ambassador. Or have we stuck there in our mentality? But we can audit this and change it for the sake of the children and that of the African continent. And lastly, as a continent, the continent must pull its weight and take its rightful place with other people from other continents. We need to mentally and physically move beyond colonialism, be at the top of the table in our own right. We need to embrace the fact that the African continent is the engine for global development and prosperity. We need to claim this, but we need to believe that we are equal partners everywhere, including in migration. We will ensure our development and will give our hope, our children hope. The future of our continent will be secure, and migration will then be properly managed to meet our needs, not just willy-nilly. Lastly, it is important that there is proper communication channels amongst working groups. Embassies must play their role. They must not be reacting, but promote and initiate dialogue when they know that the people who originate from their countries live in those countries. Governments need to have proper stats as to who is in those countries. There need to be a database of all new migrants, refugees in each country. It is important for institutions to keep track of what is going on in local institutions and those created by new immigrants. The promotion of joint programs will go a long way in promoting harmony. We must promote dialogue about the program of migration across the African continent. We must highlight the pros and cons, however painful, of migration, but we must underscore the pros and address the negative issues of migration with solutions. And I think the Honorable Minister said that already. But we must engage the heads of state honestly. The AU and the UN about the issues of migration on the African continent, with the emphasis not only problems, but on the solutions, not only on the negative, but on the positives of migration globally and the input of Africans. We must try and tackle all of the issues that are not problems yet, because before they become problems too difficult to handle. Handled well, migration can promote global harmony, positive working relationship, but handled badly, it can exacerbate conflict amongst nations and their respective citizens. It can only be a further trigger of xenophobia and hate amongst nations. We need to handle it with care to build a better world, but we need to promote what is positive more, because most of the time it is not. We must dispel the fact that only Africans are migrants and emphasize that people of the world migrate. And as Africans over centuries, we've embraced people from other parts of the world. And let's figure out a way of having migration that will embrace everywhere, wherever, every person, everywhere, wherever they go. Thank you, Chair.